Hello and welcome to Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton. Shane Brophy with me as always here. Shane, it hasn't been quite as busy a week in terms of overall Tipperary GAA. We didn't have too much camogie or ladies football to talk about. Obviously the hurlers weren't out, but the Gaelic football team doing Tipperary very proud at the moment after going from Division 4 back up to Division 3 with a great win over London. 5 wins in a row, and just David Power can do no wrong at the moment.
No, it's a terrific turnaround. There's no doubt about it. Like from where they were 1 point after 2 games, like to go on a 5-game win and run, like it's a credit to him and credit to players. It was like I do think there was a reassessment of what they were doing. Like I know David said we were doing a lot right in training. I wasn't coming out on the field, but it's hard not to think that they didn't not tweak a couple of things after the Leitrim game. And like, look, they got a bit of good fortune with the Wexford game being postponed, but there was a sense that day, even talking to David after the postponement, was confirmed that the tide had turned a bit. They had a very good win over Longford in a challenge game in that middle week, that free weekend between Leitrim and the original Wexford date, and they had figured out a few things. So look, it's like they didn't go on a 5-game win and run. Like they really couldn't drop any points from then on, and look, they got the job done. Another trip to Croke Park, out of a no pressure game against Cavan. Like then they've got 4 weeks then to tune up for the Munster Championship. So look, they're in a good place at the moment.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on what Cavan manager Mickey Graham's had to say. And actually, they had that situation recently whereby Antrim had the home advantage from their upcoming Ulster clash taken away, but it's been given back to them again. And he just reckons that too much was made of it. But I suppose what can he do about it? It's kind of done now at this stage. But from Tipperary's 114 to 12-point win over London, did you ever feel that this game was in doubt? And again, it stands out. Mark Russell making a scoring impact again with a goal.
Yeah, if they were always relatively comfortable, but if Liam Gavigan's goal chance in the middle of the second half hadn't been saved by Michael O'Reilly, I think it would have been down to a 2-point game at that stage. You said, God, then the nerves would have really been jangling, because like there was nerves there in the second half. You could see, I suppose, like white line fever a small bit, and okay, the result was all that mattered, and particularly in the second half, like first half performance for first 25 minutes was very, very good again. You could see a small bit of pressure coming into that way. We just got to make sure we got the win here, and look, they did in the end. It wasn't a perfect performance by any means, but as David Power said afterwards, last Saturday night was Tipp's league final. They needed the 2 points for that, and that's where they are, into a league final now. They'll get a really good game off Cavan now. In terms of a pre-championship starting the preparations, it's ideal, and you're going to get a very, very motivated Cavan team after Tipp beating them up in Kingspan Breffni 3 weeks ago. Like, so I think there'll be a little bit of bite to this one, and there probably will be, because the Cavan aren't playing Antrim till I think the 23rd of April, like 3 weeks time. So look, it's just far enough away for both teams to really give it a good go before they focus on championship.
Yeah, and especially when it's little to no chance that the two teams playing each other in the championship. Well, who knows with the qualifier draw? Very unlikely. So they can go out there and put their full hand out if they want. Interesting listening to Mickey Graham this week. He was talking about how Antrim are a Division 3 team, so they will be the ones considered the massive favourites against his Division 4 team when they meet. But I don't really think too many people believe that. Cavan are in a false position being down in Division 4. But isn't this interesting that two teams meeting in a Division 4 final, both were provincial champions just a year and a half ago?
Oh, it is, but in some ways it's not. It was like, I think from Clare in the middle of Division 2 down to where Tipperary are in Division 4, I think you could throw all those teams into a hat and they play each other, and all those games will be 1 or 2 point contests. I just think there is between division, maybe the top end of Division 2, let's say, to the middle of Division 4. I think on your day, any team can beat each other. And like, you would look from the scenario, like, as you said, Antrim probably unfortunate maybe not to be promoted from Division 3 last weekend. Like, Cavan will probably be favourites for that championship game, but I think Antrim would fancy their chances. And you think Tipperary should, like, I think they'll be forewarned going down to Dungarvan this time. I think they'll be better prepared to play Waterford in the championship down there. And then if they get through that, they play Clare or Limerick in a semi-final, and Tipp wouldn't fear either of those teams in the slightest, even though on league form and recent championship form. Both of them are slightly ahead of Tipperary. Like so. So look, I think they've both Cavan and Tipp. I think bar one of them takes an awful pasting this weekend that does psychological damage, or maybe there's I suppose that you pick up a straight red card that carries over into the championship. So that's the one risk. I mean, we saw with Aston Gleeson last weekend, and I suppose the one risk this weekend, if Cork or Waterford pick up a straight red card again, that's them out of the first round of Munster. So that's
fingers crossed.
That's it. I was thinking, God, Austin's sending off against Waterford. I think Liam Cass has got. I don't mind him being sent off for league final, but I want him around for Tipperary on the 17th of April. Like so, I think it's something we might chat about later. It's the risk of getting to a league final is the jeopardy of maybe injuries and suspensions, whereas Tipp are training away nicely in the background, nobody talking about them or anything like that.
Yeah, Paul Tierney says Robbie Kiley is like our answer to Brian Fox, a real leader. Having him back was massive. Other lads stepped up as well. Bill Maher when available, Kevin Fahey, etc. Kevin Fahey got on the scoring sheet as well. Didn't he get 1-1 late on?
Kevin Fahey was unreal in the first half last Saturday night. He scored 2 points. He set up a goal and a point. And he also, I think, blocked a goal chance for London on the line. He was just everywhere. He's a class footballer. I think having him playing him wing back, it sort of gives him more license to get up the field, and like he's just has a super engine, and like just the little tweaks this year, like Colin O'Shaughnessy going at centre back. Like your centre back really, he sort of anchors the defence, and you can let your 5 and your 7 get up and down the field, and that's where it sort of plays into the hands of Robbie Kiley and Kevin Fahey and Bill Maher. Like so, just those little tweaks. And you mentioned Mark Russell earlier on, like a goal and a point. He doesn't mind having a shot. Like if he's anywhere 30-35 yards out and he gets the smell of a shooting chance, he will take it. Like, and he rarely kicks. He's very, very accurate. Like he's scoring impressively nearly every chance he gets. He's shooting very, very few wides.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just looking at some of the players that have done the scoring for Cavan so far in this league run, and their scoring differential is plus 37. Tipperary's is plus 17. So obviously they're putting teams to the sword, especially Waterford. Now that really would have bloated their scoring differential because they won 321 to 10 points, whereas Tipperary actually drew with Waterford the first day out. The only points that Waterford got. So it really is strange to think of how poorly Tipperary started the season to now being in a position where they beat the team that topped the league and they're going into a league final now. But Gerard McKiernan, he scored 129 from his outings, 14 of them frees, 2 of them marks. So he's obviously put up a nice bit from play, 113. Raymond Galligan has 15, but all of those were placed balls. Paddy Lynch then with 219. For Tipperary, Conor Sweeney is the second top scorer in the division, just behind Keith Byrne of Leitrim. He has 426. 22 of those are for placed balls, so obviously 4 goals from play there, and he's had his injury issues. Sean O'Connor with 112, 8 frees, and Mikey O'Shea 2-7. Do you feel going into this game at Croke Park that Tipp are more suited to this venue or that Cavan are?
Yeah, I'd have to think Tipper's more suited because they've played there a lot in the last decade or so. Like this will be their third league final at the 2014 Division 4 final against Clare, which they won in 2017 to beat Louth in the Division 3 final. That the quarter final win over Galway in 2016 and the 2 All-Ireland semi-finals. So like they're pretty familiar with the venue. Okay, there's been a lot of turnover in players, particularly since 2020. So there'll be a core probably of maybe 5 or 6 guys that'll be lining out in Croke Park for the first time on Saturday. But look, there's still an awful lot of experience there. Like from Jimmy Feehan, Shane O'Connell, Colin O'Shaughnessy, right up to Conor Sweeney, like that have played there before, and even Mikey O'Shea would have played an All-Ireland minor semi-final there for Tipp, I think, in 2018. So even the likes of him, even though it's his first year playing inter-county football, he's been familiar with the venue. So look, it's a free swing to nothing really this weekend. But like that's the thing. Maybe I'd like to think maybe about Cavan and Tipp will feel. Look, lads. And the management will be this week saying, look, bit of silverware here, lads. We won't just go up there and act the maggot, like, and do some silly things. And like I would draw myself back to Wexford last weekend, how they looked like a poorly focused team last week. And just the way that Jack O'Connor 2 yellow cards, as if the lads that had tuned out, like they weren't fully tuned. Like you do stupid things like that when you're not fully tuned in, and look, it can put you in difficulty. So like Tipp would need to be focused enough to not to be doing, not to end up one, taking a bad beat, and two, doing stupid things where maybe a couple of players end up getting straight red cards and suddenly you're out of the first round of the Munster Championship.
Yeah, leave the act and the maggot till they get to Ryan's in Camden Street later on in the evening, huh?
That's it.
But I'm just wondering, like, considering I suppose the mood music around the Tipperary football team when all those players that are no longer involved, Brian Fox retired, Michael Quinlivan not being available, Conor Bowe going over to Hurlers, there's a number of other big names there as well. For this group now to have quickly come together, and to me, obviously promotion is brilliant, but if they can go to Croke Park and be, they're celebrating with a bit of silverware afterwards, that would be huge for sort of gelling this bunch and bringing them on to the next level.
Oh, definitely. And like it opens up the summer then too. Like, and I suppose we think about next year and you're up in Division 3 and like I was for American afterwards and I saw the makeup in next year's Division 3. It must be the most low-key Division 3 I've ever seen. And I would include Tipperary in it. You have Antrim, Down, Fermanagh, Cavan, Longford, Westmeath and Offaly and Tipp. In terms of football, it is the most low-key Division 3. There's nothing, even from somebody who loves going following Tipp. There's no opponent there. You say, God, I definitely want to see them play in the picture. Whereas Division 2,
sure, man, for trips up to Corrigan Park, you were right about the other day.
We're going to have that next year now with Antrim doing the business in the hurling. Like, maybe so. Could happen. Like, but I'm being in jest. Like, you look at Division 2, like next year you have Dublin and Cork and Limerick and Meath. Actually, that actually looks a bit of potential there. But coming back to where Tipperary are, I think the year opens up nicely for Tipp now. You think, okay, if we get down to Waterford, hopefully focus, take the game to them, get out of there with a win, do it with our business, get to play Cork, I say Limerick or Clare in the semi-final. If you win that, you're in the Munster final and you're in the first round of the Sam Maguire. Okay, maybe as Pat Nolan said, maybe as he was saying about Offaly last weekend, Michael Verney said on your show on Monday that maybe playing Tailteann Cup maybe for Offaly this year is probably not a bad thing place to be. So maybe if Tipp don't get to a Munster final, you think winning a Tailteann Cup is definitely within the remit.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking at what Mickey Graham was saying this week, Oisin Kiernan won't be available for the game through injury. Martin Riley, Kieran Brady, Conor Brady, Connor Smith, Oisin Pearson, they're all in contention for the game. So obviously we'll see the teams closer to the game. But Mickey Graham was saying about winning this, he goes, when you get to any final, you have to go out and win it because days like this don't come around too often. And Cavan have been in a number of league finals down through the years and weren't able to get over the line. So we'll be hoping we can get a result, and also for the confidence and the belief that it will bring to the squad because it will give the younger lads an appetite to push on and improve, which is pretty much what we're saying in relation to Tipperary. I don't think any team ever gets to a final and doesn't want to win it because winning is a habit, especially on big days. So, like, if you get to a couple of finals that are, feel a little like they don't mean too much at the time, but then you start to lose other finals that do, then people will say, well, they didn't just lose that final. They have a history of losing them in other situations. So I think this would be an important one to lay down a marker. And given Tipp's record against Cavan, there's no reason they'll go out with any inferiority complex.
No, definitely not. And I say with the fact that Tipp have a very good record over Cavan over the years, I think Cavan will be stung small. They'll be think, okay, we can't keep losing to these guys. Okay, we're Cavan, we're a traditional football county. We shouldn't be losing to what they think is a professional hurling county more often than not, which has been the case in the last few years, bar the 2018 Division 2 games. So I suppose the only thing that will impact both managers' views this weekend. Anybody with a niggling injury is not going to be sent out there. Be interesting to see whether Conor Sweeney will go on Saturday. Like I couldn't say he was 100% fit last Saturday, and I say maybe he was put out there just to make sure we get the job done, get out of the match with a win. But he did play the 70 minutes, so obviously the injury from the Carlow game wasn't that bad. So, but there would be a chance maybe for would you give the like of a Cathal Deely a start that has come off the bench in the last couple of games? Who else? Like,
a few more guys. Came on against Sligo. There's a bit of pace and energy about him.
You have Stephen Quirk, who's had a very, very impactful slot off the bench the last couple of games. Maybe you maybe start him and give him 50 minutes to get those minutes into his legs and things like that. I suppose there was good news, like or Straight of Power saying that Jack or Stephen O'Brien's recovery is coming along well, and he should be back fully for the championship. I know he was carrying a leg problem through Ballina's club campaign earlier in the year, so look, he'll have that sorted. And probably Bill Maher probably won't make this weekend either. But look, I suppose as long as those two guys are back for the first round of the championship, that's the more important thing at this stage.
Yeah, and get any comments in if you have any thoughts on the game, or even if you just want to wish good luck to the group, get the messages in and we'll display them on the screen here. Let's talk a little bit of hurling now. John Bubbles O'Dwyer isn't going to be involved for Tipperary this year. How big of a blow is that to not only to the team's chances this year, because, you know, what a quality forward. I think in the All-Ireland finals he's played in, he's averaged something like 1-3, or, you know, if you want to convert it, somewhere between 5 and 6 points per game, all of those coming against Kilkenny. He's a player that when Tipperary have been winning All-Irelands, he's been the lad on the top of the sod who's, you know, helped cut the opposition apart. How big of a blow is it for both him and for the team?
Look, it's a blow in terms of at his best. He's probably the sweetest hurler. He has the best hands, I think, in the country. He just has everything about him. Am I surprised he's not made the squad? No, I'm not. I thought from the moment the original decision was made not to include him in the league squad, I think the writing was on the wall, even though, look, he made a serious attempt to get back fit and get back right. But look, he was behind a lot of the rest of the group in terms of fitness and catching up. I know people might say, no, this is Bubbles. We should have him there. And look, every week, every training session he has with Tipp in the next few weeks, he's going to get better and stronger. And I just don't know. I don't think we haven't seen Bubbles at 100% since 2019. Like, he had his injury issues in 2020 through the club. He came on against Limerick in the Munster semi-final, and he wasn't even tagged out for the Galway match, I think 2 weeks later in the quarter-final last year. Very, very good first half against Limerick. Went out of the game. Wasn't really impactful against Waterford in the quarter-final. I just wonder, like, when Colin Bonner sat down to have the chat with Bubbles over where he thought his fitness was, I just wonder at the back of his mind, thinking, okay, but if we still carry Bubbles and had him on maybe the 26th, but didn't bring him on, is that just creating another, as rumours, like a speculation goes in Tipp, why isn't he bringing Bubbles off the bench? Why isn't he bringing Bubbles off the bench? Whereas if he's not on the squad, there's no issue there. You can't use him, like, so. I think that could be an element of it too, and that could be a relief in one way for Colin Bonner to think, okay, if I hold on to Bubbles at 80%, and I'm not using them, people, and as supporters in this county, they will think
forgiving.
No, that's it. And why isn't he using them? Why isn't he using them? Like, and maybe Bonner knows from training that he's not 100%. He's not at his sharpest, and like you really have to be at your very, very best to contribute at inter-county championship level at the moment. Like, and look, we know at Bubbles at his very, very best is nearly unplayable. Like, he's just his vision, he has hands, he has everything. But if he's not at 100%, he's more of a luxury player, I would think. And in the modern hurling, you need guys that are skillful, but and work great and have everything about them. You need to be 100% fit. And look, if Bubbles is not, if Colin and Bubbles don't feel it, he won't be getting to 100% fit till maybe May or June. Is there any point in carrying him? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, well, if he's 100% fit, I've no question, but he's fully merits his place in there, and fully fit merits his place in the starting team. And what I would get your comments in, let us know. Do you think that Bubbles should still be involved, or do you? I mean, again, it's down to, like, we haven't seen him in training and how he's doing, so we're kind of stabbing in the dark a little bit. But just in a sort of a longer term thing, now he's had plenty of injuries in the last couple of years. I even think at that time that he got an awful dunt against Cork in that league game down. I think that was the end of 2020, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. But like, he's only 30. He doesn't turn 31 until September. If you look at, and I look at players that in some ways I can see comparisons, like Patrick Horgan, for example. I could see Bubbles doing the Patrick Horgan role for another 2 or 3 years. Horgan has turned 34 this year, I believe. like, why couldn't Bubbles do that for another year or two? Because some of the other older players, I think Seamus Callanan is probably, obviously he's going to miss the first couple of rounds and he's 33. So he might stay on for another year or so, hopefully. And then Bubbles should have another, just going by age, you would hope that he'd have another couple of years after that. If he could be coming in and, making an impact in games for the next couple of years, I would like to see a situation where he's still involved and that's not the end of him. But get your comments.
I suppose a lot would depend on his drive, and I think a lot would tell us will be his performances in the club for Killinall in the next club campaign. Like how if he gets a chance now away from Tipp to go away and get fully fit and all those niggles right, like he's had knee problems, he's had ankle issues, go away and get everything right and come in and have a brilliant campaign for Killinall and more or less tell Colin Bonner, I'm not finished yet. Again, he hasn't retired, and again, I take Colum's comments to me are face value. That he sat down, he discussed it with John, and I know Colum had a debrief with every member of the panel last week, as after post league debrief. So that Colum is not a fool. Like if Colum thinks that John O'Dwyer in 2023 is at 100% fit, 100% right, can contribute to it, he will have him back. There's no problem. So look, I think Colum is not a fool to think that if he felt that John felt he could contribute in a positive way, he'd still be there.
Yeah, and I think that could be the case. Yeah, so we'll monitor that situation. But I suppose when you look at the rebuild job that Colin Bonner is trying to do in his first season, like it probably sometimes goes a little understated that he's doing so without a huge amount of players that people otherwise would have thought would have been central to it in 2022. Obviously, Brendan Maher's retired. Paddy Maher's been forced to retire. Bubbles is injured, so he's not available. Niall O'Mara's not available. Brian O'Mara's away. Kieran Connolly's away. Willie Connors is injured. So, I mean, it is some job. I mean, we look at it and we criticize certain things here and there, but I think we always do try and, keep in mind the fact that he is trying to fast track a lot of players into the team and get the experience that they probably should have had by now. So it's not going to be one of these things where it happens smoothly for him.
No, it's not. And like I don't think he ever came into the job with a rebuilding job in mind. I said a gradual evolution. But I was looking at the team that lost the quarter final to Waterford last year, and from what he will have 6 players that played that day that he will not have, and that's more that he will not have on Sunday fortnight against Waterford again. Like that's forced on him. You go through the great Kilkenny team over the last 20-15 years, but Cody Moore lost one star every year. He never lost 5 or 6 in one go. Like no Brendan Maher, no Pádraig Maher, no Seamus Callanan, no John O'Dwyer, and Niall O'Mara and Willie Connors came off the bench that day. Like that's a fair whack of experience pulled out in one go, and you've got to find new guys in the space of a few months. Like that's difficult. Like I'd say, look, ideally he would have loved to have had, in a best case scenario, you would have had Willie Connors and Pádraig Maher and Seamus Callanan fully fit and Bubbles fully fit. The only two you would have been losing was Brendan Maher and Niall O'Mara. Like that's massive. Like, and like that's a fair job for any manager to try and undertake, to lose that level of experience and nous. Like it's and look, it might have long-term benefits. We could have teething problems this year. We might have to go through maybe another 2018 yet. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but it has the potential to be a difficult league, or it could have our Munster Championship, or it could be if Tipperary finish in third place in Munster, I'd snap your hand off at the moment. And if Tipperary still in the All Ireland series, having gone through the Munster Championship, you'd have to think they'd have a smell in All Ireland, because you'd have a lot of guys who would have been blooded through Munster at the battle hardened. And like I think last weekend league semi-final proved that Munster is still stronger than Leinster. And like if the top 3, whoever comes out of Munster in the top 3 would have a fair chance of getting to an All Ireland semi-final.
Yeah, there's teams that won't come out of Munster that'll arguably be better than a team that gets to a Leinster final. And it's interesting you talk about 6 players from Tipperary not being involved this year for Colin Bonner. I look at what Liam Cahill had in that game against Tipperary last year in the All-Ireland quarter-final, and every single player is still part of the panel. Obviously, one or two are maybe injured. I'm looking at the likes of Jamie Barron. He's probably in a race against time for the Tipp game. Connor Prunty possibly the same. Maybe we'll see himself and Stephen Bennett this weekend. We're not entirely sure. But he has the likes of Tyg de Borca back and other players, I suppose.
Here Dale is a year older, like, and Carrick Daly. Desi Hutchinson's only getting better, like, so.
He is, and like a few times, some of the scores that they got last weekend, I think that lovely little ball over the top from Desi Hutchinson from the corner for Austin Gleeson to finish. I know he got the red card, but Joe, interesting you mentioned a little while ago Dublin being in Division 2 in football next year, and they've probably lost the players, a right lock of players, all of a shot. They're sort of, and I'm not saying Tipperary are obviously not coming on off the back of a 6 in a row of All Irelands or anything like that. But there's sort of some similarities in the sense of trying to fast track that, I suppose, through a new generation or even half a generation to get the team back to where they want to go. Do you ever look at the league though and think part of it has been, maybe didn't get full value from the league?
It's a difficult one because I suppose Colin Bonner had to come in, and I think Colin Bonner and Henry Shefflin were sort of in the same boat, that they had to look. They were first-year managers. They had to use the league to look at players, which meant, you weren't going to probably come out of the league knowing maybe what your settled team was, what your spinier team was, and like that. I think you have to make that decision as you come in as a first-year manager. Or am I going to build a starting 15, or am I going to look at my options? So, like, I don't know what you think. Do you think Shefflin and Bonner took it the wrong way, or how could they have balanced it out a little better? I thought maybe Colin could have balanced it out slightly. I thought he went maybe too far towards giving everybody a chance, rather than getting maybe a spine of a team together.
I suppose if there was anything, it'd just be the same point that I probably made last week, which was a few of the players that I would have liked seeing getting a real shot this year got a shot, maybe not in a position that ultimately suited them, which maybe brings me to the point of the teams that we named before the league. Now, we'll probably pick our championship team maybe next week or just the week of the build up to the Munster Clash. But here's our teams that we picked before the start of the league. And I'll just run through my own, and then I'll give it out to you. We had Brian Hogan. To be honest, Brian Hogan and Barry Hogan, it's still a bit of a flip of the coin there. I think they're both good options, and it's a difficult one to pick. Cathal Barrett kind of picks himself. I had Ronan at 3 and Seamus Kennedy at 4. Now, both of them will probably play in the half-back line. I have Brian McGrath, who was tried in the corner, and I think probably would have been more suited to being tried in the half-back line. I had Paddy Cadell, who was tried midfield. And again, I don't think that position suits him. I wanted him in the half-back line. And Barry Heffernan, I think it would be brilliant to start, give every possession out to Barry Heffernan if you like, and he'll draw a man or break a tackle and put you on the front foot. He's been tried midfield. Then Alan Flynn, we haven't seen quite as much of him. Dan McCormick has been midfield. Breen and, interestingly, I had Kyo out the field. He's impressed in the inside line. We won't be seeing Seamus Callan in the first 2 rounds. John McGrath, we may see. I suppose he got a real shot of confidence in that second half against Antrim. Do you want to have a look at your own team there and let us?
Sure.
Just to finish off the point, I look at that, and a lot of the players that I would want in the team may not be there in the summer, or certainly not in their positions. But a couple of the guys who look very, very unlikely to make to stake a place for the team now, I think it's because they were tried in positions that don't really suit them. So it made it more difficult for them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Owen Connolly's probably a case in point. I thought he was hung out to dry a bit at cornerback. I don't think he's either a 3 or he plays anywhere along the half back line. Like, so, I thought that probably impacted his ability. Like Barrett and Morgan. I threw Connolly in there because I thought maybe a good young physical guy. Maybe if he had got a couple of good performances, it might speed up his development. But like I've been a big James Quigley fan for a long number of years, and I'm delighted he's had a good league campaign. And I suppose, look, he's a safe bet at full back. Look, he's going to get a severe test in the first round of the Munster, like Michael Kiley. He's God Almighty, he's an absolute beast. Like, so, and he might have a spell in Desi Hutchinson too. Like, so, but look, he's a good, tough young lad, and I hope he'll drive on. Alan Flynn now is like, I I think he's too experienced a player and too clever a player not to find a role for him. And I'm not convinced that maybe he wouldn't slot in a wing back. Like he'll I think defensively he's very sound and he's a good ball player. I think midfield will probably be Dan McCormick plus. I don't know. You probably
Barry Heffernan looks like
Barry Heffernan in there like too, and probably you'd give Noel McGrath maybe the free role at 11, and they'll probably with Seamus Cannon out. You're probably looking at maybe Jason Ford inside at this stage, or maybe Mark Keogh like and Jake Morris. So like I think Tipp's first 15 will be as strong as anyone's. It's the bench that could be Tipp's issue later on. In I suppose trying to maybe turn some of those maybe close games into winning positions in the last 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, do you have a sense of optimism at the moment? We'll go into it more deeply next week and the week after, but do you have a sense of optimism, or are you fearing 4th and 5th positions?
I suppose I'm one of those that feels that Tipp are being unfairly forgotten about. And
Good.
Look, yeah, that's it. But I would worry that too many people in Tipp are putting so much store into the first game that if we don't win it, the whole forget about it. Like Tipp have to play Clare a week later. If Tipp come out of the first 2 games with 1 win out of 2, I'd take that. Like there's no point in going down and beating Waterford and losing to Clare the week later at home. Like that's a waste of time. Like so, you've got to be so careful not to throw all your eggs into the first basket and then not thinking, oh God, we have 3 more matches to come to try and qualify out of the group. I just think there's an awful lot of that going on at the moment. That if we don't beat Waterford, Jesus, we're in trouble. Like if we come out of Waterford a narrow defeat and a very, very good performance, I think minimum I would take that. It won't be a failure to come out of Waterford with a defeat. The only failure coming out of Waterford is if you get absolutely steamrolled, and then psychologically you're really bet. Like this is a marathon. This is not a sprint of old first round championship. Like this is it's all about accumulating the number of points to get out of the group stage. That's for me. I think. Particularly for a team like Tipp, like it's how do you get the 5 or 6 points is going to get you out of the group?
Yeah, I just hope that Tipp don't rely totally on look. We'll get fire in the bellies for this match, and we'll wire it into them. And because you need to obviously hurl smart too.
Yeah.
And sometimes the league games aren't representative of what's going to come down in the championship. But if you look at Limerick against Cork last year, Cork got pasted in the Gaelic grounds in the league, and then got annihilated in the All Ireland final. This year, Cork really limited Limerick in the Gaelic grounds, and maybe that's sort of a sign of what's to come in the championship. Maybe not. We don't know just yet. But if you look at last year in the league, Tipperary got pasted by Waterford and then went into the championship, gave a real up and at him performance for most of the game, and obviously were cocked towards the end. John McGrath had that chance, great save from Sean O'Brien. But it was just the manner of the last 10 or 20 minutes against Waterford in the league that would make you worry that Tipp can come with all the fire they like, and that will get you so far for maybe 20 minutes, a half an hour. And I think Waterford would be like, look, lads, we're going to have to weather a storm here from Tipperary. But after that, our game plan is more developed. We'll be running down the centre. We'll be popping points. We'll be creating chances. Tipp will be relying on blasting up the field and get the breaks and whatever. That is my concern. Have they enough time to really develop that? And also, is that what they're actually focusing on doing in the meantime? Or are they focusing on let's get fire in the belly?
I'd say they're focusing on certain aspects. I'm sure in training maybe they're prepared. They're probably doing maybe every night in training. Maybe they're doing an aspect to prepare for Waterford. No, you can't just prepare for Waterford and then suddenly 3 nights later, what game plan are we going to apply against Clare? I'm sure I'd like to think maybe in training there could be a night focusing on Limerick and there's a night focusing on Cork. It's like all our opponents have different styles about them. They have different strengths. Like so, like they've got to be prepared for everything. And I definitely think after what we saw, from Waterford last weekend, and look, there's definitely a bang of the Tipp under 21s and 19. If there's a smell of a goal, they're going for it. I think if Tipp have to go for goals down in Waterford, they have to feed fire. If there's a smell of a goal chance down in Walsh Park, Tipp have got to go for it as well. Because as well as Tipp might defend that day, there's a fair chance Waterford could still get 3 or 4 goals, and it mightn't be down to bad defending. It's just their attitude is if you look at their 5th goal Shane Bennett got last day, he ran in from the 45-yard line. He even for that far out, if there was a 10% chance for a goal, they were going for it. Like so, and I think every team has got to have the same mindset with Waterford. If they're going for goals at one end, we've got to sort of go for them at the other end.
Yeah, but that would involve replicating what Tipperary did do against Antrim, which is go at the man.
Yeah, and I think
didn't happen in the previous games.
No, but I think maybe there was maybe sea change in training to think, okay, lads, we just can't settle for the points, lads. We've got to try and work goals. And look, if you have a player in Mark Keogh and Jake Morris whose first instinct is to run at defenders, and maybe if Jason Ford's vision in around them like that, you couldn't tell me that they couldn't open up defences. And you have John McGrath's vision, you have Noel McGrath's vision. Like there's potential there.
Yeah, is Tipp's team set up to deal with runners down the centre too? Because that's what Waterford are going to do. That's what Cork are going to do.
Is any team set up can any team really set themselves up to stop runners runners off the ball are nearly impossible?
They have the players that are equipped to deal with runners going up the centre, and that's the thing with Tipperary. Maybe so, but we'll see in a few weeks' time. What are your thoughts about the league final this weekend? I mean, Liam Cahill certainly got one over on Dara Egan at the weekend. The manner of the score, and 5-20 to 16 points. It was a mother and father beatings, and Wexford just shooting from 100 yards all day. I think that was a frustrating thing to watch from their point of view. Needless red cards on both sides. Jack O'Connor throwing the hurley when he was already on a yellow card. I thought that was kind of a selfish, petulant thing to do.
And like that summed up Wexford's attitude on the day. I wouldn't say they came in not bothered, but when you're not fully tuned in, you do stupid things like that. And it was petulant, as you say.
The show the other day, I don't buy this thing of we lacked energy and not being sure why.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had an opportunity to prepare for the game, same as everyone else. So I think that's kind of, what is the real issue with Wexford there? Is it that they have players that can be exposed and that Waterford just managed to do it?
It's hard to know. It's maybe. I think that they put out a close to a full strength team against Cork the week before. Maybe they gone too hard there, and whereas Waterford maybe had mixed and matched against Kilkenny. Like I suppose that Dara Egan's finding himself, I suppose, in terms of how hard do you go in training during the week. Sometimes you can get it wrong and feel that players will have enough at the tank at the weekend, and it just didn't work. And as I say, Waterford
would be a good thing because anything that is wrong with that Wexford team was exposed in front of the country there. So you can't allow that to happen. Like, it's fine getting hammered if you learn from it, but if they don't learn from it, and you know what, it's a fairly mouth-watering Leinster opener for them against Galway, a battle of two managers in their first championship game as inter-county bosses. Henry Shefflin against Dara Egan.
But I think the big thing for Wexford last weekend was Conor McDonald going off. Like, that didn't look good, that injury. Like, and that's the risk of these extra games in the knockout. Whereas the likes of Tipp and Galway and Clare sitting at home doing their bit of training.
Tell that to Seamus Callan, he broke his thumb in training.
Yeah, that's it. But I know, but I suppose it looked like a muscle injury with Conor McDonald. Like, you're really, really going hard. Like, so I know people say it might happen in training, but like that's the risk. And I suppose the greater risk is red cards. Like, and especially next weekend with Cork and Water. Anybody that gets a straight red card next Saturday is out of the first round of the Munster Championship.
Yeah. How do you see this final going this weekend? Watford against Cork. Watford won it in 2015 when Pádraig Mahoney was joint top scorer alongside Patrick Horgan. Cork last won it in 1998.
I fancy Waterford because I just think they're further along in terms of what they're doing. Cork have made progress this year. I wasn't sold on Cork until last Saturday night. I said if they could come out, like you were always going to get a game off Kilkenny and they will test you. And I suppose the manner, I think it was the ideal scenario for Cork, having to come from behind against Kilkenny when the game was there to be won. I think that was massive for Cork. I think they're the real. I would say they're not up. I wouldn't say they're up to Liverpool, but they're a real deal in terms of knowing what they're about and believing in them. So I think it'll be a good game. I fancy Waterford to shade it. But I can't wait to see the two starting lineups and think I'm sure anybody with an eagle will not be playing in it because I think 2 weeks' time is more important for both counties. But will there be any bit of experimentation in it? Will they any bit of downgrading this league final with Munster Championship coming? That's the really interesting thing for me.
that is the question. Do you want to road test what you're going to do in the championship? I'd say Waterford will just do what they always do. To be honest, I think both teams probably will. And I wouldn't be surprised if Waterford still made a few more changes. I mean, it's highly impressive the way they're able to dip into their panel and they get the exact same performance. Whereas with Limerick, they do have a couple of lads you'd be happy to bring on in certain positions. But I'm starting to wonder, do they have the same depth? And with Cork, they have great depth from maybe 6 forward. But after that, I think they look like they're very much struggling in the full back line and for natural defenders.
Like, it's an ideal game for maybe Callum Lyons to go in from the start. Like, even though the first 15 is looking good, but you're looking at Jack Fagan and who's the other wing back?
It was the other day it was Cardiff Daly.
Yeah, probably okay. You're probably thinking okay, best 15 Lyons probably comes back in the space of Daly, but they're probably going to wrap. Iarla Daly doesn't look comfortable at full back, but they're wrapping Conor Prunty up in cotton wool to have him there for, and Daly will. You wonder, will Daly go out in the corner? Like, you think if there was one weakness in Waterford's team, it was probably their 2 cornerbacks. So you could see maybe Iarla Daly having to go in the corners. So like you have, and you can have backline of Fagan, De Borca, and Lyons, and because I would have thought like that their 2 cornerbacks maybe there were their weaknesses, and that's not because Ian Kenny and McNulty or Conor Gleeson are poor hurlers. Just that maybe they'll go for size, and like Iarla Daly, and like you know the way the two cornerbacks now are they're coming out so far out the field that Iarla Daly will be comfortable in that role as well.
Oh, I'd say he'd love it. We have a few comments in here. Paul Tierney, undecided on Bubbles. One of those where he knows best, perhaps hoping Ray McCormick's in the squad next season, a former under 20 Tipp captain. Boris Lehman. So obviously I can't.
I thought he might be drafted in this year. I was disappointed he wasn't now. So.
Yeah, he has the height and the pace and the aggression.
He's raw, but he needs as much time in there to there are a couple of kinks in his game. I think Arden suited inter-county, but that doesn't mean they can't be tidied up and make him a real sort of a Jack Fagan, sort of real purposeful player out of wing back.
Yeah, well, it's hard to find pace, and he certainly has it. Boom Boom 43, we might catch Watford on the hop. The long grass is over our heads at this stage.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it certainly is. Anything else you want to touch on before we finish up with today's show?
I suppose I wrote a column this week, and I don't know your thoughts. I thought last weekend, I'm just wondering about the future of the knockout stages in the league, and are the GA missing a trick in terms of finishing the league on the day and having the top team winning the title? I just thought the last few years, the final round of the National Football League in particular is brilliant crack, and it's just a pity that the GA in their wisdom nearly finish all 4 divisions on the one day. Like, instead of, maybe they'll listen to the likes of him and Fitzmartin and say next year we'll finish 2 divisions on the Saturday and 2 divisions on the Sunday, and we'll have 2 time schedules on each day, and you can have 1 live match from each division, or maybe 2, and you just get the drama. Like, I remember driving home from, I think, a Football League match one day on the final day, and I think Division 1 might have been finishing at 4:00 after the early matches finishing at 2, and it's perfectly set up for radio and telly going between the different grounds, and like in terms of knockout, like, I suppose in terms of the hurling league, the league, I suppose the Munster Championship starting so close to the end of the league that there's no benefit of the extra games in semi-final and final and maybe winning a bit of silver. So do you maybe give every team maybe a 7th or an 8th league game, maybe play somebody for a second time, or maybe if you played 2 home games and 3 away games, maybe you play a team a second time, but you get a 3rd home game. But the way, just it balances it out, and maybe you kind of create that final day atmosphere too. And like, there's no distinct advantage or disadvantage for any county.
Yeah, I'm with you in terms of like the knockout games. And to be honest, like I find taking up the calendar with games that the counties themselves consider somewhat meaningless to be a waste of a good part of the calendar. I'd rather have the championship made longer and more games therein than wasting time on the league. Make the league that bit shorter. And I agree with what you're saying. Why not just get rid of the knockout phases to it and just have it league only? But then maybe would you broaden it out to slightly more teams, or would you get rid of the 1A and 1B aspect and just put the very top teams into the top 1, whether it's 6 teams, 8 teams, 10 teams, something like that. But then that would obviously make the league last that a little bit longer too. But I agree with you in terms of like going the red zone aspect,
Yeah.
like what TG Carr have been doing, has been very entertaining to watch. And it could get to the last stage of the Munster and Leinster Championships this year, where we're hoping for something the same. Do you remember a few years ago, Wexford and Kilkenny played down at Wexford Park, Dublin Galway played in, this was 2019, in Parnell Park. I was in Parnell and it was brilliant. And if you had that red zone NFL thing, you watch NFL, I watch it. You could be there for 6 hours of a Sunday and, you know, you're in heaven watching it. And like you're saying there, if the final rounds of the Football League last year, if they had those over, like let's say start 4 o'clock on a Saturday, then the next round at 6 o'clock on a Saturday, then 2 and 4 on the Sundays for the start of Division 2, Division 1, be absolutely glorious.
But like, I just want to try and understand, are the GA not, are they just tied? Oh, we have to have a final at the end of it, or are we losing out on the payday? Like, you look at I take the 4 football finals this weekend. I'd say combined attendance, you won't get 40,000 between the 2 days. Kerry won't travel to Croke Park. Mayo will. Galway won't. Roscommon, wishy-washy. Limerick. I'd say that the only final where 2 teams will be actually looking forward to playing in, I think, is Louth and Limerick, because they don't get to Croke Park that often. I think, would you not be better, instead of having 8 teams playing next weekend in 4 football matches, have all 32 teams playing in 16 matches in an 8th round of the league? You will get more. You will get an accumulated crowd of more. Look at the crowds last Sunday, all over in fine weather across the country. They were absolutely huge crowds.
But maybe the thing is that we need to incentivize the league winners a bit more. So let's say for the hurling championship that you're guaranteed that one more of your games is a home game, so that it's not completely defined from months out that, right, this year you're going into the championship and you've 4 group games, that actually 3 of them will end up being home fixtures, and you end up with home fixtures more often than not than the teams you finished higher. I mean, I haven't fully worked out the system, but you need to incentivize it for having some benefit for the championship, for teams to really say, we'll go full board for this, or else maybe give some sort of a monetary benefit to the county.
I think you have to go down that route. I think you have to. I think there needs to be a broader discussion about the league and the championship. Is that okay? If league's great, get to a league final, but if you get sent off in a league final, you're automatically then you're getting to a league final, great. But if your player gets suspended in that game, he's out of the first round of the championship, which is a bigger competition. Like, you're also then being penalised. Maybe that red card should carry over to the first round of next year's National League, or unless you do something really egregious, you get a 3 or 6 month suspension, and you deserve anything you get, then you deserve to miss the championship. So I just think there's too many managers in a lot of counties in hurling and football who see a knockout game in the league and hurling and football as sort of an annoyance, really. Like, if you ask Liam Cahill and Kieran Kingston, do they want to be playing next Saturday evening? I don't think so. Yeah, they'd rather be done and dusted preparing for the first round of the championship.
Just a final point before we finish up. We talked about Antrim and going into their relegation clash with Offaly this coming weekend, not performing on some of the big days that they've had in recent times. So the relegation playoff last year and the Dublin match. But in this game against Offaly, they certainly did. They were the better team throughout, and they saved their bacon heading into 2023.
Yeah, and they had to do it. I watched a lot of it, and they had to do it with Offaly coming back and at them. I think there was only 1 point in it. It started the second half. Like you said, Offaly were really coming here, and the pressure was on. But I think they showed there a couple of years of Division 1 hurling in them in that second half. Like, they were powerful. And to win without Neil McManus, that's massive. That is, they're raging hot favourites now for the McDonagh Cup. I think it shows you the value of exposing the likes of Antrim and the Westmeads to Division 1 hurling. Like, Antrim, you could see physically how far ahead Antrim were ahead of Offaly. And maybe in terms of Offaly, it probably is no harm having a small bit of I suppose a moment where to sit back and think, okay, we've made progress, but we still have a long way to go. And maybe it'll be a small bit of realism into Offaly that, okay, it wasn't going to be a fast thing for Michael Finlay to go in there and pick things up. And I suppose who was it? Their best? They were missing their best player in this year's league. Is it not Oisin Kelly? Isn't it?
Yeah, and Keegan Kiley isn't around.
Keegan Kiley, like put those, like if they had those two guys in the early rounds of the league, they probably would be more competitive. They need everybody to be competitive, but look, it's awfully that not playing Division 2 hurling in next year's league is not going to hurt Offaly in the slightest, like, because it might be just a somewhere where they can actually develop more players and maybe come back maybe as a better prepared for Division 1 hurling in 2024.
Yeah, I'm sure that Michael Fennelly will be hoping that they can do this year what Westmeath did last year, which is recover from the heavy beatings in the top tier of the league and then go on and win the Joe McDonagh. By the way, I see story breaking there as the show has been going on that, and this is in light of what you're talking about with suspensions carrying over from league into championship. 5 players have been hit with proposed one-match bans out of the scuffle between Donegal and Armagh, and they're all set to miss their opening championship match
against each other.
Against
each other, like so.
So that's
yeah. They were saying it on the Sunday game last night that are released under that. If you're at it, you'd be waiting for the emails during the week to see who's going to be picked out. It'd be interesting to see who the 5 lads are, or the big names, or will they be just small enough names where we could throw them under the bus or something. Like, and you still have Michael Murphy and Rian O'Neill and some of the quality guys that will be there for the first round of the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great stuff. Make sure to pick up a copy of the Nina Guardian, and we'll be chatting to you again next week. Thanks very much, Shane.
Cheers.